Picture this. You're standing at the base of a mirror-covered wall that stretches beyond the horizon. It's taller than the Empire State Building. It's longer than the distance from New York to Philadelphia. And it's sitting in the middle of the Saudi Arabian desert. This is the line. Or at least, what it was supposed to be. Because here's what they don't want you to know. The world's most ambitious megaproject just got secretly chopped down to size. And the story of why might shock you. Back in January 2021, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stood before the world and announced something that sounded like pure science fiction. Saudi Arabia was going to build a linear city called the Line, a straight line cutting through 170 kilometers of desert. Imagine laying 41 World Trade Centers end to end. That's how long this thing was supposed to be. But here's where it gets crazy. The line was not just long, it was massive in every direction. 500 meters high, 200 meters wide. If you stacked 70 regular houses on top of each other, you'd barely reach the top. The vision was breathtaking. 10 million people living in this mirror-covered megastructure. No cars anywhere. Instead, you'd travel the entire length in 20 minutes using some kind of high-speed rail. The whole thing would run on 100% renewable energy, climate-controlled perfection in one of the harshest deserts on Earth. The line was just one part of NEOM, a $500 billion futuristic city project. Picture a video game city come to life. There was Oxagon, a floating industrial complex shaped like an octagon. Trojana, a mountain resort with artificial snow in the desert. And Cinderella, a luxury island paradise. But the line was the crown jewel, the thing that would make the world forget about Dubai and focus on Saudi Arabia instead. The numbers were staggering. The total cost? A mind-bending $8.8 trillion. To put that in perspective, that's 8 times Saudi Arabia's entire annual economic output. It's like the United States deciding to spend $200 trillion on a single construction project. But then 2024 happened, and everything changed. In October 2024, something significant happened. The CEO of NEOM, the guy running this entire operation, stepped down. Nadmi Al-Nasser, who had been leading the project since 2018, was replaced by a new leader with a different approach. Around the same time, project updates revealed that the line would be built in phases, starting with a much smaller section. We're not talking about small adjustments. We're talking about focusing on a 2.4-kilometer segment instead of the full 170-kilometer vision for the initial phase. The project team explained this as a strategic decision to build and test smaller sections first. We're taking a phased approach, they said. This allows us to perfect the technology and systems before scaling up. Looking at the construction timeline, this makes engineering sense. The original promotional materials showed the line as one continuous structure, but the technical challenges of building 170 kilometers simultaneously would be unprecedented. The current focus is on 3 modules, sections 45, 46, and 47. These will serve as proof of concept for the larger vision, allowing engineers to test everything from transportation systems to environmental controls on a manageable scale. Industry experts suggest the project encountered the reality that every megaproject faces, engineering challenges that are more complex than initial estimates suggested. The environmental conditions in the desert, the unprecedented scale of construction, and the integration of cutting-edge technologies all created complications that required rethinking the approach. Construction engineering firms point to similar challenges in other massive projects worldwide. When you're building something that's never been built before, you often discover problems that don't show up in computer simulations. The leadership change wasn't unusual for projects of this scale. The new team brings experience from other successful large-scale developments across the region, suggesting a shift toward more proven construction methodologies. So what exactly is rising from the Saudi desert right now? The reality is both impressive and underwhelming at the same time. The mini-line, as construction workers privately call it, is still a massive undertaking. Picture a mirror-covered wall stretching 2.4 kilometers, about 30 city blocks. It's still 500 meters tall, which means it towers over every building in most major cities. But instead of housing millions, this first phase is designed for around 300,000 people. Instead of revolutionizing transportation, it's more like building the world's tallest apartment complex. The scale of construction is mind-boggling. Satellite images from 2025 show an area of the desert that's been completely transformed. We're talking about moving 500 million tons of sand and rock. That's enough to fill 200,000 dump trucks. The foundation work alone is staggering. Engineers have driven over 16,000 concrete piles into the desert floor. To put that in perspective, the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, needed just 192 piles. The line needs 84 times more. Here's one of the strangest parts of the current construction. They're building what they call a hidden marina, a massive artificial harbor that's not even connected to the coast. It's like building a port in the middle of Kansas. The marina sits inside the structure, completely enclosed, with artificial beaches and man-made waves. The engineering required to pump seawater 15 kilometers inland and maintain it in the desert heat is absolutely bonkers. Then there's the NEOM Stadium, a football stadium suspended 350 meters in the air. Imagine watching a soccer match while looking down at clouds. The structure will cantilever out from the line's main body, creating what architects describe as gravity-defying sports architecture. The engineering challenges are unprecedented. How do you get 40,000 people up and down from a stadium that high? How do you deal with wind loads at that altitude? How do you ensure the structure doesn't sway during matches? One problem nobody talks about in the promotional videos is water. Not the lack of it, but too much of it underground. The excavation has hit massive groundwater reserves. Engineers are now running 24/7 dewatering operations, pumping out millions of gallons daily just to keep the construction sites from flooding. It's like trying to build a basement while standing in a swimming pool. Even this initial phase represents a massive economic commitment. The first segment is estimated to cost $370 billion. That's more than the GDP of most countries. It's more than the cost of the entire Apollo space program, adjusted for inflation. The funding comes from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, part of the country's broader economic diversification strategy. The investment represents a significant bet on the future of urban development and sustainable cities. The current plan calls for 300,000 residents in the first phase. That's more people than live in cities like Buffalo or Newark. The target demographic includes professionals, entrepreneurs, and families interested in cutting-edge urban living. The project team is developing comprehensive marketing strategies targeting residents from across the Gulf region and internationally. The value proposition centers on innovative transportation, climate-controlled living, and access to advanced technology infrastructure. This is where the line faces its biggest challenge. The Middle East is littered with ambitious projects that never reached capacity. Dubai's artificial islands still have empty luxury towers. Qatar built entire cities for the World Cup that now sit largely vacant. The line could become the most expensive ghost city in human history, a $370 billion monument to ambition that exceeded reality. The entire NEOM development depends on this first phase demonstrating viability. If the line successfully attracts residents and businesses, it validates the concept for future expansion, including Oxagon, Trojena, and other components of the master plan. The project represents a significant test case for innovative urban development. Success could influence similar projects worldwide, while challenges could provide valuable lessons for future megaproject planning. The line is also betting heavily on technologies that don't fully exist yet. The promised high-speed transportation system, still in development. The AI-powered city management systems, largely theoretical. The closed-loop environmental systems, never tested at this scale. They're essentially building the infrastructure first and hoping the technology catches up later. It's like building a racetrack before inventing the car. 2025 is the make or break year for the line. The first residential units are supposed to be completed by late 2025. The test isn't whether they can build it. The construction is clearly moving forward. The test is whether anyone will actually want to live there. Early marketing campaigns are already targeting wealthy families from across the Gulf region. The pitch is compelling. Live in the future, escape traffic forever, enjoy perfect weather year-round. But marketing promises and reality are two very different things. If the line succeeds, if they actually get 300,000 people living in this desert megastructure, it could influence urban development worldwide. Cities facing space constraints and climate challenges are watching closely to see if vertical, linear design offers viable solutions. The project could demonstrate new approaches to sustainable living in extreme environments. The lessons learned could apply to urban development in other desert regions, Arctic areas, or even space colonization projects. Here's what keeps urban planners awake at night about the line. We still don't know if people can actually live this way. Can 300,000 people thrive in a linear city? What happens during emergencies when everyone needs to evacuate through just 2 exits? How do you maintain social connections when your neighbor might live 20 floors up and a kilometer away? These aren't just engineering questions. They're fundamental questions about human nature and urban life. The line represents a test case for whether innovative architecture and massive infrastructure investment can create successful new urban models. It's an experiment in pushing the boundaries of construction technology, environmental engineering, and city planning. Urban planners, architects, economists, and construction firms worldwide want to know, can this approach to city building work? What lessons will it provide for future developments in challenging environments? By the end of 2025, we'll have our first real answers. The first residents should be moving in, the first businesses should be opening, the first stress tests of this linear living experiment should be underway. Speaking of impossible engineering, China just built 157 kilometers of highway using 0 human workers. Fully automated construction that makes the line look simple. The robotic technology behind it will blow your mind. Click here to see how they did it.